my mom, she is 92 years old. She has Alzheimer's and dementia.
We have a pastor with Alzheimer's.
She was forgetting people's names. She was putting grapes in the butter dish and chips in the freezer. And
my mom has Alzheimer, beginning of Alzheimer.
My dad's 72 years old, and when he was 69, about 3.5 years ago, he got diagnosed with dementia.
Bob has severe dementia. He has forgotten how to write his name. He couldn't remember his wife of 50 some years.
I reached out to my mom because my dad has Alzheimer's.
And one of the things that is very impressive is like she loves poetry. And then she started just, giving all her speeches and in hours. And they're so long. And we're like, oh my gosh, how in the world she can't remember all this?
11 days, his wife noticed, and he noticed that he was feeling better. And he recently, it's been 2 months now, he had an MRI and the Alzheimer's is gone from half of his brain. And he's 85% better.
Her dementia disappeared.
And she's been able to cook. She's been able to do gardening. She's been able to clean the house.
With his type of behavior, dementia, he was just kind of getting into trouble. So that kind of behavior started to get better as the months went on.
He has become more verbal. He had a great day all day long. He was in a great mood. He was joking with the nurses.
And then slowly I started hearing reports back from my mom. Hey, he's folding the laundry when I hand it to him. Hey, he put the ice cream in the freezer instead of the fridge.
Of course, she still has dementia, but she talks a lot. In her little world, she still recognizes, because she also has Alzheimer's. So she recognized all of the kids. We ate, and she knows everyone by name. And one of the things that is very impressive is like she loves poetry. And then she started just, giving all her speeches and in hours. And they're so long. And we're like, oh my gosh, how in the world she can't remember all this? And then she sings, and then it's just amazing just to see how she's doing after seeing her basically, unconscious and suffering of pain. So that was great.
We have a pastor with Alzheimer's who's getting results in 11 days. He recently, it's been 2 months now, he had an MRI and the Alzheimer's is gone from half of his brain. And he's 85% better.
That's just incredible.
Yes.
And when someone talks about, well, do the patches work? I'm not sure how they work. Stories like this give you every reason to believe that they work exactly like they are supposed to when the magnification of that light is given to our cells. That's a tremendous story.
I thought, well, why not try this for my mom? My mom was suffering with old trauma that had gotten triggered. She's 88. And so we got the patches. I started them the same day. 5 weeks later, she was walking straight, and that wasn't something that we were planning on addressing, but it was a nice side effect. She had a mild stroke, and so she needed walking sticks or a cane to walk. And if she did walk towards you, she always veered to the left. So all of a sudden she was walking straight. A couple weeks after that, her dementia disappeared. And prior to that, she was forgetting people's names. She was putting grapes in the butter dish and chips in the freezer and a key lime pie down in the Tupperware drawer. So she was completely not herself. And we were watching her, digress and looking into assisted living. So, and then finally over time, her emotional balance came to be. So it all was a quick, but then slower progress as the body ticked off different things to keep working on.
I am super happy, and the energy I have is like unheard. Like my mom is so happy. And I have another testimony for you, but go ahead and ask me the questions you need to ask.
So, well, we are so excited. And I know your mom, just in 30 seconds, tell us a little bit about your mom, because I know she has Alzheimer's, or she had symptoms of Alzheimer's. So just
That is a difficult thing to do in 30 seconds, but I'll try. Yes, my mom has Alzheimer, beginning of Alzheimer. And we're praying for a total miracle in restoration. She began to use the patches and her mind started having this big clarity. And she's being able to cook. She's been able to do gardening. She's been able to clean the house. I mean, we've been using all these different patches, X39, Energy Enhancer, Eon, Carnosine, Glutathione, Nirvana. She doesn't use the depression medication, neither the anxiety medication. We stop it. And today we went to the neurologist. And the neurologist did a test on my mother. And she said, what is this that you're giving her? And I said, I was ready. I showed her all these pamphlets with all this information and told her, listen, I would love that you share this with all your patients. And she said, you can do all the tests on my mother and we can prove you that this thing works. So, hey.
Wow.
Talk a little bit about what was going on with your dad prior, how long he's been patching, and what you've started to see from the minute he started to what's going on now.
Okay, sure, Laura. My dad's 72 years old, and when he was 69, about 3.5 years ago, he got diagnosed with dementia, which is a behavioral type of dementia called frontotemporal dementia. It's also early onset, so he'd probably had it for a while, and we just couldn't tell because he was self-medicating. He's a very smart man. You know, he was able to work until about 3.5 years ago. He's been in a facility for about 2.5 years. And the problems he was having were behavioral. So this kind of frontotemporal dementia affects his attention span, his impulse control, his ability to focus. He's had like ADD or ADHD his whole life and some OCD type behaviors. So I started patching about 6 months ago, a little bit over 6.5 months ago, the beginning of December. And I have chronic Lyme disease, and I immediately could tell a difference. I mean, just with the first patch, I was so lucky. So I wanted to share these with my dad pretty much immediately because he was the most, ill, and the person, I'm closest to who needed the most help. So he was very open to using the patches, and since they're not like a medicine, the facility allowed that, which we're so grateful for. Immediately we noticed that he had better mood, less anxiety, he was sleeping better, and there were less problem behaviors in the nursing facility. I mean, he's just really smart, like almost genius level. And with his type of behavior, dementia, he was just kind of getting into trouble. So that kind of behavior started to get better as the months went on. Eating was a big issue. This type of dementia leads to choking on food and aspirating food, and a lot of times pneumonia. So that's improved a lot in the last 6 months. The last time we went out to eat for Father's Day a week ago, he was able to push the food away and wait for it to cool off instead of just, shoveling it in as fast as he could, which is a hallmark of the frontotemporal dementia. So 6 months ago, about 7 months ago, before he started the patches, that was his 72nd birthday. And he couldn't even read a greeting card. His focus, his ability, his attention span, his ability to focus was just so small, just like seconds. He couldn't even read a greeting card, the front and the inside. He would just kind of glance at it and throw it down. But once he started the patches, he started being able to read long Bible passages during worship services at his facility, which was pretty amazing. We were really happy to see him do that. And then he's wanted to be an author his whole life, but with the ADD, ADHD type of behavior that probably preceded this dementia even, he just was never able to settle down and really write anything except for maybe a haiku poem here and there. Well, now he's written almost 200 poems in the last 6 months since he's been on X39, and I am working on getting his first volume of a poetry book ready to self-publish on Amazon Kindle Publishing. So that would fulfill his dream to have a book in his hand with his name on it and his picture on the back and the title. And, I just want him to have that while he can still appreciate it. And sometimes he's writing up to 10 to 12 poems a day. And we got enough poems here pretty soon to actually work on volume 2. So he's sleeping better. He's happy. He's got a purpose. His behaviors keep improving. His eating habits are safer. And he just feels like he has a purpose in life again. He lost his job 3.5 years ago. Like I said, been in a facility about 2.5 years. So, it's like he's got his life back as much as he can, dealing with the issues he's got. But I'm just so grateful. And I can't say enough good things about Lifewave and X39, which is his main patch. He did Silent Nights for a while. He doesn't even need those. He just needs X39, and that does it all for him to give him his quality of life back and the ability to have a purpose and fulfill his lifelong dream.
But the most outstanding example that I have, I am POA for a dear friend of mine, Bob, and Bob is 77 years old. He'll be 78 in July. Bob has severe dementia. He is currently in a facility, a memory care facility, where they take care of him 24/7. And I've watched Bob digress into this black hole of horror. He has forgotten how to write his name. He can still feed himself, but he couldn't remember his wife of 50 some years. It's just been really bad. He became mostly nonverbal. He couldn't communicate with you. So I talked with his doctor because he's in a medical facility and he has a doctor there. I had to get the doctor's permission for me to use the patches on Bob, which she did. I sent her all the information. I had a phone conversation with her, and she said, yeah, if you want to provide the patches for Bob, I will make sure that the nurses put those patches on him at 8 o'clock in the morning and take them off at 8 o'clock at night. So he's been on the patches for about 2 months now. And the nurses, they're making notes in his daily record of his progress. And he has become more verbal. He'll communicate with you. Last week, the nurse said he had the best day that he's had since he's been there. He normally, as the day progresses, he suffers from sundowners. And so he gets very, very confused, disoriented. He had become violent, and Bob is never, that's just not Bob. So the first thing that we noticed, I'm sorry, I've got so many things jumping in my head. I want to get it all out quickly. The first thing that they made note of in his record was he stopped complaining of pain. And that was within the first 24 hours of the patching. So no pain. He has started eating better. He's got a better appetite. And last week was the first day where he had a great day all day long. He was in a great mood. He was joking with the nurses, and he's got a great sense of humor, so I can see that coming out in him. And of course, that was just one day, but that's a glimpse into what I'm hoping and expecting to see over time, the longer he's on the patches, him getting just a little bit of a light of what Bob was. So those are the most outstanding and astounding example of someone in a very serious medical state that we're seeing kind of a light at the end of a tunnel for him.
I reached out to my mom because my dad has Alzheimer's, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, let's put these patches on him, because some of the things that he had going on was, Alzheimer's, but he was following my mom around. He wasn't helping doing any chores around the house because he couldn't remember what he was doing. And so like if you called him on the phone, you talk to him and you'd have a, somewhat of a conversation. And a few seconds later, you could hear my mom, where did you put the phone? Because he laid it down because he just totally forgot he was even on the phone. And so there was a lot of frustration for my mother. And so I sent the patches out to her, and, and then slowly I started hearing reports back from my mom. Hey, he's folding the laundry when I hand it to him. Hey, he put the ice cream in the freezer instead of the fridge. And then my brother went out, and my dad hasn't played golf in years. My dad loves to play golf. My brother took my dad out to the golf course, and my dad had a wonderful time. He knew how to play golf. He just loved it. And so, really gave my dad back, where he was more vocal, and which, maybe she didn't like the vocal part as much, but he was more vocal. I could have a conversation. And that happened probably, that was about July, August sometime. When I went out in Thanksgiving last year to visit him, I said, my mother joked with him and said, well, who is that? And he said, well, that's my daughter. And she goes, well, which one? And he goes, well, Stacy, of course. And he looked at me and he said, that's Stacy, my daughter, and I love her. And I thought, at the end of the day, if that's the last memory I have, what a precious thing, because I hadn't had that in months, in years, to hear my dad say something so sweet. And my dad is a lover. He's like me. He's a lover.